If you haven't tuned into our first installment of the K-pop deep dive, be sure to check out episode 12. So talking about K-pop might seem juvenile or even unproductive to certain people, but I think that pop culture in general presents just so many opportunities for crucial conversations in a way that they reflect public sentiment in any given society or era. Today we're talking about the beauty standards in K-pop, which is influenced by and continues to influence the broader public, specifically in Korea and also in Asia. So if you're interested in topics about colorism, plastic surgery, fat phobia, or just any beauty standards in general, be sure to tune into this one. Thank you for joining us. Badum, badum.
So, in terms of standards of beauty in K-pop, when I first got into K-pop, I was surprised to learn that there's a specific position in a group called a visual.
Yeah.
And my understanding is that the visual is supposed to be the most aesthetically perfect person in the group.
Uh-huh.
Like the visual fits closest to the standard of beauty, and that's why they are the visual. So it's not even necessarily about them being like the most attractive person. It's just about how closely they fit to the preset conditions of beauty in Korea. I thought was really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how I would feel about either being a visual or having a visual if I was part of a group. Because you're basically saying that you are there because you are beautiful, not necessarily because you're talented.
Mm.
Right? Like being a visual is an admittance of, oh, you're here literally because you're physically attractive or
Mm-hmm.
because you've had the right surgeries to be physically attractive.
Right.
So, like, what must you think of yourself? And then what? I mean, maybe they don't care, but what do your other group members think of you? They're like, I have to practice 7 hours a day in order to be the best
Yeah.
dancer. And you just like show up.
Yeah, and like the other members, won't they feel like, oh wait, so you don't I'm not visually appealing?
Oh, there's
Like,
definitely I've seen whole like YouTube videos, obviously K-pop YouTube is a hellhole, or like Twitter threads where it's like there are beautiful members and ugly members of a group.
yeah.
You've seen that probably too.
Yeah.
And it's like how would it feel to be listed as the ugly member all the time?
I know. They go on like programs where they're asked to rank their
Right.
visuals. It's just, yeah, I'm not a fan of it.
And visuals, I think, is such like a palatable word to use instead of just
Right.
being like, this is your physical body and it's either good or bad based on these standards. Like, to say
Yeah.
visuals is so innocuous compared to like what it really is. They're just like, oh yeah, the person with the best visuals is this person, and the person with the worst visuals is this person. And it's like, okay, so you're calling your group member ugly. That's what you're
Mm.
saying.
With the visuals in K-pop, it's kind of weird. I think most people know it's weird, but they still like it anyway because they end up thinking that, oh well, they are really beautiful. And it's I think it's toxic because it kind of sets the standard of like, oh, you do need to be visually beautiful in order to be a good person. And it also perpetuates the idea that like beauty and like your personality is like intertwined. Does that make sense? Like if you're beautiful, it must mean you're like a good person kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a whole concept we talked about in one of my English classes, I think. I think it's called like phenomenology or something
Mm.
like that, or
Okay.
like physiognomy, the idea that beautiful people are beautiful because they are good people, and they're good people
Mm.
because they're beautiful, and ugly
Mm.
people are bad because they're ugly, and they're ugly because they're bad, right? It's like it
Mm.
becomes like a huge vicious cycle.
So I think that happens when you put pretty, like you only accept pretty people in your K-pop groups, you know? I think there are quite a lot of differences between the beauty standards in like America versus in Korean culture and by extension Asian culture.
Yes.
So one of the things that I really wanted to talk about, we briefly mentioned this off air about like plastic surgery. And I think obviously plastic surgery in any country would cater towards the beauty standards. So in Korea that would be like the double eyelid surgery.
Like, I can say in America now, and I think in Western society in general, Brazilian butt lifts, the procedure,
Yeah,
is up by like 200%, and it has a very high mortality rate.
exactly.
Yeah, talk about the monolid or the double eyelid surgery.
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if people know this, but the double eyelid surgery in Korea, it was actually brought, like the actual surgery was brought over and popularized by like an American military surgeon during like Korean War, one of the wars, you know. I don't really know my war history that well, but he brought it over and he started to give it to people, to Asian people, Korean people, because he thought that the slanted monolid looked like lazy, looked like kind of evil and stuff like that, looked untrustworthy, basically. So that is the origin of it. And you can say that today it's become something different. but you can't deny that that was the origin. You know, it's kind of like with Thanksgiving, right? It's like, okay, sure, you can say it's become something different now, but it came from a very different place. And there are some people in Korea, you know, like estheticians and stuff like that, who refuse this idea and say stuff like, oh, no, we're not trying to look white at all. And I agree. A lot of people who do this aren't trying to look white necessarily, but they're still kind of perpetuating a Eurocentric standard of beauty. They don't necessarily need to look white in order to do that, I think.
No, I
And
agree.
yeah, and I just think that people should recognize that and recognize that this is where it came from, because a lot of times people end up saying that, oh no, this is just, you know, our beauty standard, it's just how it's always been. But no, it was actually imposed onto you and then onto this society and then until it became the norm.
Right.
So I have double eyelids, and it is something that, like, as a baby, parents would be like, oh, I'm so lucky your baby has double eyelids, kind of thing. It would be something that kids talk about to each other, like, oh, haha, you only have monolids, kind of thing. Like, I'm not Korean, I'm from Malaysia. I don't know if, like, everyone in Asia prefers double eyelids because of that, but in Korea, the surgery for that definitely came from America, because that's just history. I think in popular media, in the youth, in the young people's minds, there's the idea of like plastic surgery being feminist.
There is this idea, it's like the dichotomy of choice, I guess, where it's like,
Mm.
oh, you can say that it's an inherently unfeminist thing to change your body to fit the beauty standards. However,
Mm.
if you are a woman and you are choosing to do it, doesn't that make it feminist?
Exactly.
And it's like, does it though? You
Yeah.
know? Yeah, you encounter that a lot recently, I think, because of like the body positivity and female empowerment movements. I think sometimes they get skewed to the point where you have girls that are getting nose jobs or getting Brazilian butt lifts or getting breast augmentations for an 18th birthday present. Like when they're allowed to finally do legal procedures as an adult. And it's like you are so young and you have not finished developing either mentally or
Mm-hmm.
physically yet. The idea of
Mm-hmm.
like permanently changing yourself at such an early age, I don't know.
Yeah, I
I don't
completely
think it's
agree.
feminist.
I think they haven't gotten to a point in life yet where they can properly reflect whether or not they actually want this or this is what society asks of them and they're kind of just falling victim to that. You know what I mean?
And if they're like, "Oh, it's just my choice. I just want to make like I want to make these changes. I want to look this way." It's like, "Okay, well, have you ever looked critically at why you feel the need to
Mm-hmm.
do that? Why do you want
Mm-hmm.
to change the way that you look so bad like permanently? Why do you
Mm.
feel the pressure to have bigger boobs as an 18-year-old?
Yeah.
Like, why do you feel like your nose is crooked and needs to be fixed? Like, why do you feel that way? Is it really something that you're choosing, or do you feel pressure because of the societal standards of beauty that have been put on you since
Yeah.
basically puberty?"
In Korea, it is quite popular and common for a lot of young kids to talk about getting plastic surgery. Statistically, you can check this on the internet. There are a lot of really young people between like the teenage years, you know, in those high school years,
18 to
that
25.
even younger, like before 18, as long as you get your
Oh,
parents' consent. Yeah, exactly. Like actual teenagers, like in school, they get plastic surgery because peer pressure and because of the standards of beauty. And I think in K-pop, a lot of idols do get plastic surgery, and maybe only a small percentage would actually be open and talk about it.
yeah, I agree.
So the people who look perfect and pretty, who might have had surgery done, they don't say it, so you can't confirm it. And so you just think that, oh, they're just naturally beautiful, and those are the standards of beauty, and they got it naturally.
It's like a weird double standard thing where everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows that a lot of K-pop idols have had surgery.
Yeah.
Because for a lot of these people, they've had social media or they have photos of them available before they debuted, and they look radically different, like
Yeah.
bone structure wise, skin tone wise, before
Mm-hmm.
than they did after they debuted.
Yeah.
But it's also seen as shameful to admit that you've had the surgeries. So it's
Yeah.
like you obviously have because everyone can tell that you look different, but you can't admit it because that's also shameful. So you had to do it, but to admit it is shameful. So then, yeah, you're right. It creates this idea that all of these idols are just naturally beautiful, even though they're so. The way that like idols look aesthetically, I think, is so far removed from what the average person
Normal
looks like in
people.
South
Yeah.
Korea or just in general, and it creates like this unattainable celebrity status, or it creates the unattainable beauty standard because they're acting like it was all done naturally and because they're
Mm-hmm.
held to such a high standard, you know what I mean? I also do agree with what we talked about a little bit earlier, which is like at the very minimum people should be more open about the fact that they've had surgery. Because
Right.
having surgery and then refusing to admit it or refusing to talk about it does go a long way towards creating these unattainable beauty standards.
Yeah.
Like, you have regular teenagers that are like, "Oh my god, I'll never look like that. Now I need to get surgery or I need to do this and I'll never look like they do." And it's like, well, because they don't look like they did naturally, you know?
Yeah.
They just won't
Mm-hmm.
admit it. In terms of beauty standards, I think there is an issue that we need to talk about that international fans and Western fans in particular have a very hard time grasping the concept, which is colorism.
Yeah.
So, do you want to take the lead on this? Because I'm not qualified.
Sure. Yeah, so colorism, really, really big part of my life. I actually like wrote like it was like one of the first papers I wrote in America when I went to the States. It was like a paper on colorism
Oh,
because when I was over there and I was trying to do research about like colorism within Asian communities, there were a lot more information for like South Asian communities, but there was a lot more articles and papers that was talking about how Hollywood whitewashes Asian characters. But actually, there's a lot of whitewashing within the Asian community itself, like making our skin lighter and like promoting this idea that if you're fair skinned, you're much more beautiful. So I think a lot of people draw the roots of colorism in Asia back to the days of labor. So they would say that, oh, you know, the royal people, the rich people, the nobility, they get to stay indoors so they don't get as tanned. So that's why people who have tanner skin are not as well regarded because it means that they're like the farmers, the workers, the laborers who have to be out there. But I think it has to be confronted that like a lot of this has to do with the fact that a lot of Asian people look towards East Asian standards of beauty as well. And East Asians do have lighter skin compared to other parts of Asia. Within Korean society, there are a lot of like tan people as well, like people who are not definitely tanner. There's the idea that if you are tanner, that you are less beautiful. That's just what it is. And people from a young age are taught to like put on sunscreen when you go out. Here's some skin whitening products. These days they market it as skin brightening, but it's pretty obvious when something's meant to lighten your skin. And there has always also been a lot of ads coming out from East Asia or Asia in general that promotes the idea of like, oh, when you're pale, you're a good person. It's like those ads where you put a load of laundry to the wash and you're like tan and like dark skin, but when it comes out, you're like a fair, beautiful girl. Have you ever seen one of those? I don't
no.
think you
I
have.
hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of people do fall victim to that because it's just the standard of beauty around here. And within K-pop, you see this play out as, you know, certain darker skinned members being called like, oh, black beauty or like black pearl or like, you know, it's they talk about their skin. It's kind of something that they make fun of or comment on at the very least.
Yes. Like Kai from EXO comes to mind,
Mm-hmm.
or like Hei-chan from NCT Dream NCT, who are they are
Mm-hmm.
both they just naturally some people just naturally have darker skin than other people.
Yeah.
And there is also, I feel like, this connotation that if you have darker skin, it's like dirty, like you said about like the
Mm-hmm.
load of laundry. Where it's
Yeah.
like, oh, you look dirty if you have darker skin.
I don't know if you've ever heard of this term, but there's this idea of like jungle Asian
Yeah.
versus fancy Asian. Yeah, so I think comedian Ali Wong talked about it in one of her shows and kind of popularized this idea, but I actually learned about it from a YouTube video made by Asians about racism within Asians, and it was shown to me by my white anthropology teacher. Love that for him. Hope he's doing well. Before hearing that term, like I always understood this, but like hearing this in like phrases, I was like, oh, so it's like a legit thing. Where like Southeast Asians, like myself, and like other Thai people, because that's Southeast Asia, we're considered jungle Asians because we come from tropical jungly areas. It's kind of like how white people think of like Amazonians or something. I don't know. There's that idea of that, oh, we're from the jungles, we're like tan, we're like, I don't know, like freaking.
I
I
think
mean,
it I'm going to interject here a little bit. Obviously, I don't know. I'm not super qualified, but it reminds me of British imperialism, and I think it's like
mm,
twined with colonialism and imperialism. The sense that like uncivilized,
mm-hmm,
you're
mm-hmm,
you're uncivilized. You're not like you're culturally not as significant or like you're not as advanced as like the other
mm-hmm,
types of Asians or the other types of
mm-hmm.
white people,
Yeah.
right?
Back to K-pop. There aren't that many Southeast Asian K-pop idols. Most of them are Thai, and it's quite obvious to me that they would only accept Southeast Asian idols if they're light-skinned.
I know that Bam Bam is one of the examples I was thinking of when I was thinking of his pre-debut photos. He looks
Hmm.
significantly different than how he looks now, also, though.
Right. The fact of the matter is that they are light skinned, especially compared to other Southeast Asians. Like if you go to Thailand, you would see people generally are tanner than they are. Either they had to undergo a lot of like skin treatment type of stuff, or Korean entertainment companies would seek out lighter skinned people from Southeast Asia. So like if you are tanner, you wouldn't really be accepted into those companies. You know, there are like smaller groups these days trying to be like more encompassing and like get people of all different sorts of backgrounds, like from India, from here and there, wherever. But those clearly aren't like the prime examples of K-pop. Anyways, let's talk about weight as well in K-pop
Yep.
when it comes to beauty standards. So they have to be skinny. That's all. That's conclusion.
Nothing makes me more fucking mad than the genre of YouTube videos that picks a
Mm,
specific member of a group and is like,
mm.
oh, Wendy's extreme weight story, weight loss,
Right.
extreme weight gain. And it's just pictures
Right.
taken at like different times over the years where she looks
Yeah.
like marginally bigger or marginally smaller. And
Yeah.
they're like, oh, extreme weight loss or whatever. And it's like, those make me so mad. I've never watched
Yeah.
one, but even just seeing the title makes me so angry.
Mhm.
I'm holding scissors for
Yes,
emphasis.
I can see that. The first time when I heard this rhetoric was on K-pop Star. Was that what the program was called? The program where like Lee Hi and like Park Jimin, not the BTS one, the other one, and Akmu, that show that they came from. And it was Lee Hi, because Lee Hi at the time, she was a little bit chubbier, but that's because she was a growing child. Basically, YG told her, "Oh, we think you're great, a super soulful voice, etc., etc. But like, we think you should lose some weight because when you dance, the lines aren't gonna look as good." So this has been the common argument in K-pop over the years. Even what's her name, Ryujin from
Itzy?
yeah,
You made
from
the
ITZY.
motion. That's so cute.
Yeah, I was like, what are they? From ITZY. She said it in like their little like short documentary video thing where she was talking about like, yeah, like it's so important, like, idols put in so much work to have their bodies, the bodies that they have, so that they have these beautiful lines and this beautiful body made for dancing. But it doesn't make sense.
No.
It doesn't make sense to me. Because you're talking if your whole argument is based around like these beautiful lines, etc., etc., I'm not saying I'm a dance professional, but I'm saying I've watched Dance Mom, okay?
Yeah?
And those little girls, those ladies, they are fantastic dancers, and they don't have those bodies. You know, they have thick thighs, they have really strong arms. That's a dancer's body, and I understand there can be a lot of different types of bodies for dancers. Look at Paris Goebel, the
Yeah.
Royal Dance Academy. Look at like all the different dancers in the world. Like you clearly can have so many different types of bodies and be so amazing at dancing. So I don't understand why in K-pop they're trying to use this argument to say that, oh, because this is the ideal body for dancing. And the fact that you are like weighed, they have schedules for being weighed and stuff like that, right? And then they're told, oh, if you don't hit this mark, you're not going to debut. We're going to cut you from the team. They're psychologically trained to associate their weight with like their value and whether or not they can be successful.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like just so sad.
And even when a bigger member debuts, the way that they're treated by people ranges from like unbelievably infantilizing, like
Mm,
to outright like derision, death threats, constant mockery.
yeah.
I'm thinking of Pristine, Kyla. This is also, I don't even want to say that she was bigger than the other girls because she was marginally bigger, I guess, than the other girls when they were all in a dance video. She was noticeably a little bit larger in the thighs, but first of all, she was like fucking 15 years old. And then also, in any other situation, if she wasn't around a group where everyone is like less than 100 pounds, she would look
Yeah.
completely
Yeah, normal.
not even normal, highly skinny because everyone else in the group is like a size 00, though she looks like bigger by comparison, even though, like, again, she couldn't have weighed more than like 115 pounds soaking wet, still incredibly skinny. Or like Purple Kiss, Swan from Purple Kiss is marginally a little bit bigger than the other girls in her group, but again, in any other situation, would look highly skinny.
Yeah.
And the way they're treated is either like, ooh, woo, like my big girl, my big chubby girlfriend, or it's like,
I hate
outright,
that
you
so
shouldn't
much.
be here, you're not qualified, you're not good
Mm-hmm.
enough, you're fat, you know?
Mm-hmm. going full circle back to like the plastic surgery thing. It's the same thing. Is the same thing. Like there's money in it. Like with like estheticians and like all of that who promote certain plastic surgeries. Now, I'm not saying that their whole career path is like invalid and that they like no one should ever go into commercial plastic surgery, like aesthetic surgery and stuff. But yes, because I know people, I know estheticians in my life, and they genuinely do prey on insecurities, and they prey on like people, aging people who start to get insecure about their wrinkles. They use that to their advantage, and they capitalize off of that, and it just doesn't. It makes me feel icky. I don't like that, and I don't think it's valid.
This may be a controversial opinion, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's how a lot of like these industries work, is that you take a natural process that happens to everybody, like aging, or just the natural way that people are, like just the way you look, and then they create insecurities themselves, right? Like the idea that you have to look young, wrinkles are bad, or the idea that you have to be skinny and have a big butt. And then they're creating the insecurity, and then they're selling you the solutions to the insecurity that they themselves created. They're making the problems, and then they're selling you their solutions to the problems that they made.
Yeah.
It's like a horrible, vicious cycle where they make all the money, and you just feel bad about yourself no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I do feel like I've been using the word natural a lot in this, and I want to say I'm not like an intense, like, vegan.
Yeah.
You only ever do things that are 100% natural. I mean, I have a bunch of piercings. I would maybe get a tattoo. I have no problem with body mods or stuff. And also,
you love vaccines.
Yeah, I love vaccines. And then also, honestly, if you really want a plastic surgery and you think it's going to improve the quality of your life and you have money to do it, then go for it. But maybe think about why you want that so bad.
And maybe like realize that, like, if you are an influencer, if you have a platform, like I feel like you should talk about it instead of people, just giving the idea that like, oh, it's all natural, girl, or whatever.
Just try and be healthy.
Yeah.
If you are not skinny, you may never be skinny.
Yeah.
It's just, you're better spent directing your energy towards trying to be healthy and live a healthy life, and then also come to terms with having a better relationship with your body than directing all of your energy towards trying to be something that you will never be.
Yeah, and it's like you can still love yourself as you are, no matter where you are as a person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like you don't have to just only be like, oh, like if I can only love myself if I look a certain way. It's like, no, if you're obese, like you can literally still love yourself. Like you can understand that you're not healthy, like scientifically speaking, but you can still find worth in yourself and love yourself,
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, yeah.
Think about all the things that your body can let you do. Like, this is kind of cheesy, but like all the shit that you do just on a daily basis that has nothing to do with your appearance, Like, my body lets me walk to class every day so I can suffer through lab,
Yeah.
Like, you can sing along to songs in the car. You can make yourself food every day. Like, there's a lot of things that your body can do that have nothing to do with the way that you look, and like, you can still be grateful for it,
Yeah.
I love that all my organs function, and I got them all,
So true.
I got all my guts right here in my fucking abdomen, and they all do what they're supposed to do.
I know, it's such a blessing. But yeah, thank you to everyone who listened to our little circus show.
It's a circus sideshow.
Yeah, we love it.
I'm the girl that like is on the circle that they spin and throw knives at. That's me.
Having the time of your life in there.
Yeah, it requires no talent, but I get full health insurance, so.
Oh, so true.
It's a win for me.